All right, guys, I got a question for you. If you remove sex from the equation, what does a woman bring to your life? This is an extremely important question for you to ask yourself. And I'd really want to ask you, like, have you ever asked yourself this when you were dealing with a woman? Or were you so preoccupied with getting sex from her or getting her to validate you and tell you that you're good enough because you're living in such a scarcity state of mind that her simply approving of you was good enough and you never even asked, hey, what does this woman bring to my life? This is the way most guys are behaving. But asking this question right here is the key to unlocking all your power as a man. It is such an important question to ask. Men need to raise the standards for the women in their life. And you've got to understand that doing this starts by asking this question about what does a woman bring to your life beyond sex. You cannot raise the standards for the women in your life if simply her being a woman and having a vagina is good enough for you. It's time for men to start raising their standards. And here's what I mean. So like this right here, this is the kind of shit most of you guys are on right now. You know, you are, if you're watching this kind of content, you want to do better in life. You're not some average guy, or if you are right now, you're certainly trying to improve yourself. And so guys will go on this journey in their lives from some pimply 18-year-old boy or 22-year-old boy to a full-grown man. They will go on a fitness transformation. They will lock in on their career. They will figure out their style. They will read books, cut out bad habits, and improve themselves relentlessly for sometimes years. And they'll do all this kind of stuff, and then suddenly they will settle for a woman who lives like this. And this is this huge fucking disaster, guys. Like, this is what the average woman does, right? Sitting around in the dark, watching some TV show, probably Love Island or some shit, while eating a bowl of popcorn. Or it's, you know, eating Taco Bell, cheesy gordita crunch wraps, scrolling on TikTok, watching Love Island. Dude, like, Love Island is the kind of thing that makes me feel like I never want to ever speak to the average woman in my life. Like, if you watch Love Island, like a woman who watches that, I'm just like, get away from me. Get so far away from me. Like, it is just as repulsing to me as like the beer gut man that we always joke about on the channel. But like this type of stuff right here, this is what the average woman's life is like. Real talk. There is no expectation put on the average woman to improve herself to get a man. And they get into this position where because of that, they just sit around and kind of just like fuck off. And then guys just hit them up. And this is kind of how it goes for the average woman. And so like a guy will go on this massive self-improvement grind, and then he'll end up with some chick like this. And I'm like, what are we doing, guys? Like you had to build yourself to be the kind of guy who could attract women. And then you're just going to settle for something like this. And the reason they do it is because they are sex obsessed. Because sex was enough, because her validating him was enough, because most guys come from this place of scarcity when they're dealing with women. They didn't get girls in high school. Maybe they struggled in college in their early 20s. And so finally, when a girl shows them interest, it's like they throw everything out the window and they're like, this is good enough. And they never stop to ask themselves, what does this woman bring to my life? Why do you work so hard just to settle for an average woman? Seriously, like, listen, like, let the average men date the average women. Let the out-of-shape bum who makes no money and is not improving himself, let that guy go date the average woman who ain't doing shit with her life. Why are you working to improve yourself? But then the moment a girl shows you interest, you don't think anything about judging her and seeing if she is up to the quality for your life. It's basically, is she hot enough to fuck? And if the answer is yes, then all other things go to the wind, and I just need her to tell me that I'm good enough as a man. And like, this is this game guys are on, and it's so fucking stupid. This is the byproduct of the pussy by all costs culture, pussy at all costs culture, excuse me. I hate to get that vulgar. I don't usually talk like that in these kinds of videos, but I just think this is a great, you know, way to describe this culture. Is really guys have this attitude of like, I gotta get a girl at all costs. I gotta have sex with a girl at all costs. And like, it's this thing. And look, I get it, right? You know, when I was, 20 years old, I was a virgin and I went off to college, and it was like literally the top priority on my mind was losing my virginity. It was like, it didn't matter who. And truthfully, it ended up being this girl that I never spoke to again. It was just some girl I randomly hooked up with at a party, didn't find her attractive, would have been embarrassed to show her off to my friends or my mom or anything like that. But it was just pussy at all costs pretty much. And so that was what I did. And then it was like the next girl was kind of like this too. It was the same thing. It was just like I did this multiple times with women that I would not have been proud to show off publicly, simply because I had this mentality. And over time, I developed, I had some more experiences with women, but it's still like, even for somebody like me who's like working on himself and, like I was in shape, I had a decent dating life throughout my 20s. It wasn't as bad as most guys, but, it's still going to be kind of sparse when you're in your early 20s, unless you are just like an NBA player or something. Like if you're 23 years old or something like that, you're just not going to get a lot of attention from women. It's very difficult. You just have to be like a natural 10 out of 10 on looks and crush it on a dating app or something. But so like I would go on dates, still infrequently at this time in my life, and it would still be this thing on my mind. I'm like, sex, or I need her to tell me I'm good enough, because you're so used to getting rejected all the time that it just creates this dynamic in your mind where her simply telling you you're good enough is all that matters. And this is a huge mistake, and it causes you to just completely overlook shit, overlook red flags, overlook her personality and her lack of self-improvement, and the fact that she has put no effort into herself as a person, meaning that she's likely already in her descent. She's already peaked. She probably peaked at 18, 19, and now she's just gaining weight gradually, wasting her life, doing all this shit, you know what I mean? And it's just like you don't even think about these things, because it's just like, thank God a woman told me I'm good enough. And so that's all it is. And they're just so worried about preserving this woman's approval of them that they never actually reflect and ask, like, what does this woman bring to my life? And it's the pussy at all costs culture. It is a huge trap. She's a decently attractive woman, so a man ignores everything else about her and tries to sleep with her. This is like the story of our culture right now, is like men just have no sense of self-respect. They do all this shit. Even, it's funny, like, everybody knows like the beta male blue pill kind of guys do this type of thing where like they'll do all this shit to get a girl, right? They'll buy her flowers. They'll do all these kinds of things for themselves. But real talk, a lot of the guys out here who are just putting in the fucking work, they're doing it. They're basically jumping through a lot of hoops to hopefully get the approval of a woman. They're like, maybe if I get jacked, she'll like me. Maybe if I get enough money, she'll like me. Maybe if I'm charismatic enough, she will finally like me. And it's all still built on this frame of you doing a bunch of shit to get the approval of a woman. And, I was like that when I started off on my self-improvement journey. It was like, hey, like if I, get in the gym and get abs, then girls will finally want me. If I, work on these other things, like women will finally want me. And it certainly helps, obviously, to make yourself attractive. But the biggest unlock for me was really when it clicked in my head that I'm not doing this for women anymore. I'm doing this for me because I want to be the best version of myself. And that means that like, I really don't care. Like sometimes they'll make those videos or someone will come out and try and say that women actually like dad bods more than jacked dudes, which is, it's total bullshit. But honestly, every time this comes out, in my head, it's like I genuinely don't care, because I'm not jacked for women anymore. I'm just jacked because this is how I like to be. This is when I think about the best version of myself. He's somebody who's in excellent physical shape. So if a woman wants a guy with a dad bod, I don't give a fuck. That's fine. I'm doing this for me at this point. It just happens to be the thing that's attractive to women. But once I had that unlock in my head, it's like I stopped, talking to women and thinking like, man, maybe if I was just a little bit more jacked or a little bit richer, she would finally just be more submissive to me. She'd finally do all these things. And I just realized, I was like, this is stupid. I've put in a ton of work on myself. I have value as a man, and I'm just going to flip this script. I'm going to stop looking at them to approve of me or give me sex and all this kind of stuff. And I'm going to start having some value in me. And now I'm going to evaluate you based on if you bring anything to my life. You see how that works? This is why the average woman has such an inflated ego, is the pussy at all costs culture. It's like a guy will just go out of his way for an average woman. And so she just thinks she's the shit. It's like, wouldn't you? You know what I mean? If you were just like some bum ass dude who makes no money and is fat and all this, and women were just flocking to you, you would think you were the shit too, and you wouldn't put in any effort on yourself. You know what I mean? So like, it makes sense that they do this. It's really men's fault for having no standards. It's because men will work their asses off and then validate her for doing nothing. You know what I mean? I made the joke about this, and like, it sounds fucked up, but it's kind of true. Is like, female self-improvement really is just like plastic surgery. You know what I mean? Like, there's like, and what I mean by that is like, there's an entire culture around men and self-improvement and our desire to better ourselves, to read books, improve our spirituality, to, get in the gym, to train martial arts, to, get our careers in a good spot, to just have self-respect, to work on ourselves. And then it's like on the flip side, there's really no self-improvement industry for women. It's kind of like they go to like a motivational conference or some shit like that. They get some toxic TikTok dating advice and they get lip filler. Like that is female self-improvement, truthfully. So like it's like we work our asses off and then validate them for just like silly shit. You know what I mean? And it's just like once you take sex out of the equation, you just look and you're like, this is like, what is this? You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. Take sex out of the equation. If you're an ambitious guy who's working on himself, you'll find 95% of women really don't meet your standards. I mean, seriously, this is how it is. And if you think about it like this, most men don't meet your standards as a friend. You know what I mean? Like if you went and talked to 100 random guys, you would probably get along with like 5 of them, and maybe one of them becomes a good friend of yours. You know what I mean? And so like the only reason it's not the same way with women is because you have put sex as the top priority, or her just simply approving of you as the top priority. And that means that any girl is good enough as long as she's moderately attractive enough basically to fulfill your ego desires. As long as she meets that threshold, she's good enough. And this is why guys will just like, they'll meet a girl and they'll think she's perfect for him. And it's like, dude, if you took sex out of the equation, you have nothing in common with this girl. She's kind of a bitch. She's got a lot of red flags. She's not going to like improve herself. So she's just going to gain weight and be a nuisance over time. She's not adding anything. You know what I mean? And it's just like, if you think about it from the perspective of like, you wouldn't be friends with most men. It's the same with women. It's like you wouldn't want to actually spend time with most women. The only reason you're doing it is to try and get sex. And the more you can just take sex out of the equation and just objectively look at them this way, you'll just realize it's like, yeah, I don't want to deal with you guys. This was kind of the harsh truth for me with this, is like, you have to almost rewire all of the programming that society has given you. Society has just got you in this place where you just think getting women is so important. And once you take that out of your head and you start to look at things objectively, you validate yourself, you realize I am good enough, because not in the sense of like I'm perfect and all that self-esteem crap. I mean, like, you realize like a woman can't approve of you. You can't make that the priority. You have to approve of yourself and then do the work to become a better version of yourself. And when you ground your integrity in that and your sense of self-worth in that instead of her approval of you, you just start looking at women and you're like, none of them really like add anything. And it's kind of like this, like, it's almost like a sad moment at first where you realize it's like, like it goes from like when you're in your early 20s just trying desperately to get sex to like all of a sudden now you're just trying desperately to find some quality out there. You're trying to find somebody out there who you're like, I actually enjoy spending time with you. You know what I mean? And it becomes like, that becomes the difficult thing. And it becomes more difficult because you have made yourself a high quality man, which means that the standards for what you're going to tolerate in your life are much higher. You know, the average guy can be friends with a bunch of people because he has no standards for himself. And so he can just go fuck off at a bar with everybody, right? But if you actually are on your shit, you have to be a lot more selective about who you're going to allow around you. And it applies to women as well. And so it's almost like this kind of, not like a black pill, but it's just this kind of thing that's like disappointing a little bit, where you're just like, oh, fuck, like I'm going to go on all these dates and I'm not even going to want to talk to these women ever again because they're all just annoying. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's kind of funny that way. Not only that, but taking sex out of the equation, you solve all your female problems. So it's not only like you get to realize that most of them are not like something that's bringing value to your life, but it also solves all your problems when you do this. Because think about it like this, you know, guys will ask all of these questions about how to deal with women, how to get a woman to do certain things for them. They'll be like, how do I get this girl to stop talking to her male friends? Like, that's a big one, right? And it's like, the underlying thing there, and like the reason this is an issue, is because you're actually not willing to let go of the woman. And why are you not willing to let go of the woman? You're not willing to let go of the woman because of either sex or because of your need for her validation of you. And so you've got it in this spot. And you know how we know this is true is because the fact that she has male friends would be enough of a red flag that if you weren't caught up on her validation or sex, you would have already gotten rid of her. So the fact that you find yourself in this position with this person shows me that you already are evaluating her purely off of her ability to validate you or off of sex. And see how that's the big issue. And then you can play this for anything. It's like, if you want to have multiple options and you want to just date casually, paradoxically, you have to take sex out of the equation to do that. And the reason being is because what will happen for most guys is like they don't really want to have a serious relationship at this phase of their life. But the first girl that shows them interest, they get into a serious relationship with her because they are afraid of losing the sex. So if you want to have multiple dating options and just have a casual, fun dating life, you actually have to take sex out of the equation to do that. It comes down to like passing her tests. She's going to give you a bunch of bullshit tests. She's going to cause drama and all this kind of stuff. It's like if you take sex out of the equation and you're evaluating her based on her behavior, then you wouldn't tolerate any of this. You would just get her out of your life, and there would be no games. There would be no shit. You would just be like, okay, like I don't need this in my life, and you would get her out of the way. So you see how, like, if you take sex out of the equation, it will solve all of your issues when it comes to women too, because you will just naturally come at it from this place of like, if sex isn't a factor, like you bring nothing else to the table and you're just causing drama, you're being dishonest, you're talking to other guys, or you're just doing all this shit. It's just like, I don't want to deal with any of this. You know what I mean? And it's just like suddenly with sex out of the equation, your standards just go through the fucking roof. Because you just realize like none of them are living up to it. And the reason they're not living up to it is because every man is pussy crazed. And so they just have these massive egos and they think they can get away with anything, because with most guys, they can get away with anything. So you're becoming the one exception who actually looks at her as a human being as like, this ain't cutting it, honey. Like seriously, like you basically have that attitude. It's like, you on this bullshit, we're just not having this. You know what I mean? And it's just like, that's really how it is. It's so important to develop that inner sense of self-worth so that you can just check a chick on everything. I just do, like, I crash out on like a girl at least like, it seems like once a week at this point. Like I'll be talking to women, go on a date with them, they do something that annoys me, and I just don't talk to them for like a month. And it's just like, I don't want to deal with this. And it's just like, if you do anything that slightly annoys me at this point, I just don't want to deal with it. Because why? Like, I like my life. I know that I am a man of worth. I've built myself. I work hard. I have goals. Like, why am I? And then I take sex out of the equation. I'm not consumed by lust. And so I just look at you. I'm like, okay, you fucked with my equilibrium. You fucked with my peace. Hit the fucking road. You know what I mean? And it's just like, you really should carry yourself that way. If you want the kind of relationship you want, if you want the dating life you want, you need to be coming at it from this place of like, if you just fuck with my feng shui at all, like just get out. You know what I mean? Like, you really need to be in that spot, guys. So right here, I also want to point this out. You know, I give the average man shit a lot, right? And this is the average man. And I think rightfully so that I give the average man shit, because the reason I do it is because I want to point out to you guys out there who want more out of life, like, hey, this is what the normal life path gets you, and you should probably wake the fuck up to this and make some changes. And I mean, I know it wakes a lot of you guys up, and so this is why I kind of beat up on the average guy, is to wake you guys up. And the reason I put this on here is because like I bash the average man all of the time. And sometimes when I'm critical of women, people will think it's like I'm just hating on women. And it's like, no, what I'm doing is I'm doing the same thing to women that I do to men, which is I just bash the average. You got to understand, like, this body right here, the beer gut man, which is the like quintessential average man, is equivalent to the girl watching Love Island eating a bowl of popcorn. Like, these are the same character. You got to understand. So like, I'm bashing women here. I'm not bashing all women. I'm bashing average. I'm bashing average behavior from women the same way I bash average behavior from men. Everything about average is fucking gross. Like, it gives me the fucking creeps. Like, I don't want it anywhere near me at this point in my life. The average man is a wreck, and so is the average woman. You just got to understand that, like, average across the board is fucking trash, guys. The average man is 26% body fat, making less than $40K per year in some soul-killing cubicle. The average woman is overweight as well. She has no, like, interesting thoughts in her head. She watches a bunch of, like, fucking rom-coms and soap operas and drama and just scrolls on TikTok all fucking day and, like, has some shit job herself. Like, average is just trash, guys. You just want to avoid average on everything. Let the average men date the average women. That needs to be your approach to this. Like, I know it's going to be hard for a lot of you guys who have improved yourself and maybe you're finally starting to get some interest from women, but this is a dangerous moment. Because what happens is you have like grinded on yourself. You have gotten yourself out of the trenches. You've gone through those hellish periods of life. I talk about you need to eat shit for 3 years so you can have a great life. It's like if you went through that period where you ate shit and now you have a good life for yourself, it's like this huge trap where that scarcity mindset kicks in and you just go talk to some chick who is just not on your level. She's just some average chick and you're just putting up with shit because you don't know any better, because you have no experience. It's a huge mistake. You raise your standards and find a woman who's actually worth seeing. So you're going to let the average man date the average woman, but you're going to raise your standards because you have worked on yourself and find a woman who's actually worth seeing, whether it be for a relationship, whether it be to date casually. There's just no reason to keep like most women in your life. Just like they're not adding anything other than ego validation, which you shouldn't be controlled by that. This requires you to see your own worth. Okay, like you have to understand, like as a man, you have value, and this is just like deeply put into our culture. I talked about this in the Pay Attention to Women Who Want You video. If you haven't seen that video, go watch it when we're done here. It really lays out a lot of these same concepts and things like that. But you got to understand, like our culture has positioned everything from the moment you were born. It has framed everything in your life under this concept that like you need to do all this shit to get a woman. And it's just like it frames everything as woman already has value. You have to do all this shit to get her. And so like men just go through their lives thinking they constantly have to like do something to get worth. You know what I mean? And like it's a positive thing in a certain way, because like you don't want to be the kind of guy who just sits around and is like, I'm good enough as is, right? Like it's the gift and the curse of being ambitious, is that like you beat yourself up all the time for what you could be doing. But it's kind of like, I mean, truthfully, I beat myself up all the time for the things I haven't accomplished. But like I would rather have that voice than not, because at least it still drives me to try and do more with myself. But a lot of guys have this thing, especially if you're ambitious, where like you think you need to do all this shit to get the world to tell you you're enough. And the big switch for me, and that the thing I try to train into myself, is realizing like I am on a deep level, I am enough. And now it's more about like, it's not about going and getting the world to validate me. It's more about like me as a full-fledged, good enough human being is going to go out and do something awesome with my life. And the more you can kind of make that switch and start to see your own worth, the more you can start being more judgy of everything, and not in like a fucked up judgy way, but just in a way of you're discerning. And you have to, like, in order to take sex out of the equation, you have to get to this point where you're not doing a bunch of shit to get the woman to validate you. So you got to start seeing your own worth. And the biggest way for me with this was just simply working on myself. And then I just created this pile of evidence to myself that I wasn't a loser. It was like, I have worked out for 12 years straight. I built a business. I train boxing all the time. I'm very disciplined and focused. I don't have a bunch of vices in my life. I'm intelligent. I'm thoughtful. I think for myself. I take chances. I've proven that I'm courageous and that I'm willing to handle stressful situations. And the more I just stacked up this evidence, the easier it was for me to be like, oh, okay, like I actually do have some worth here. The world doesn't need to tell me I'm good enough. I know I'm good enough. So stack up that evidence for yourself and then start to look and be like, hey, like I did that thing and I did that. Like I'm good enough here. I know who I am. I am a man of worth. And then once you do that, you can start looking at the world with discernment rather than just looking for it to tell you you're enough all the time. So many guys live in scarcity with women, and so they come at everything from the frame of getting the woman. This is how most guys look at it. Like they'll think about like, what text should I send a woman to get her to like me? And do you realize that the underlying framing of that entire thing is that you need to do a bunch of shit to get her to like you? Meaning you've already positioned her as the validating agent here. You are the applicant. She is the person with the job, essentially, to hire. And you are posturing to her and doing all this stuff. You have positioned her in this weird way, almost like, I mean, not like this is kind of an odd analogy, but really you've kind of positioned her almost like she's God and you are like the human who is like trying to show its worth to this thing, right? Like, am I good enough? Am I behaving in such a way that is approved of by you? And like you're doing all these things. And it's just like, this is so silly. Like, why do you need to like send certain texts to get a woman? Like you should just be super like once you have self-worth, you just become so nonchalant, guys. Like I just like blow off girls all the time. Flake on dates, and it's like not even to be a dick. It's just like I just am like you're not bringing enough to my life, and I'm not dealing with this, and I'm just not playing this game where I got to do a bunch of shit to get you. Like you are not the prize of my life. It's nothing personal. I like women fine, but it's just like this notion that I need to do a bunch of shit to get you, that I need to like know the right thing to say, and I need to, like women will put out these lists sometimes of like I remember it was trending a while back, this list of like all the places that you shouldn't take a girl on a first date. And it was like a bunch of like chain restaurants or like, all these, like a few other things that they were saying, like, you shouldn't take me on a date here for the first time. And I'm just like, why are we accepting this premise? You know what I mean? Like, why are we accepting this premise? Like, I have to be like, oh, well, I wonder if this is an acceptable place for a first date. Like Olive Garden's not good enough or some shit like that. Like Olive Garden's like $20 a plate or some shit like that. I just bought you a free dinner. Like, and you're bitching about this. You know what I mean? Like this whole thing, like this is all like baked into their egos. They've got this ego where like, not only do I need a free dinner, but it can't be at a corporate chain. It's like, what are we doing here? It's just stupid shit. And it's just like, you'll see this in all the advertisements for men's products. Every fucking ad for a man's product has a woman in it telling him that like, this is the thing that will make a woman like him. Like I saw this the other day, like a car freshener ad. There was a car freshener ad and it had a woman holding up the thing and she was like, the reason the girl's not into you is because your car smells musty. And if you got this, then you'd get the girls. And it's like all of everything, the advertising, the shows, the movies, the fucking behavior of the women, everything just screams this frame at you, which is like, you need to validate yourself to me. And it's just like, what are we doing here? If my car smells like dog shit, fuck off. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying just be a bum, right? Like have class, but like, what is this shit? You know what I mean? Like, what is this? Take sex out of the equation. What the hell did you even bring to my life? I have some girls talk to me. I'm going on a rant at this point, but I hope this is bringing some value to you guys. I have some girls sometimes. I'm talking to them, and I remember I talked to this girl a while back, and I just sent her this text, kind of like funny. It was like a funny text that I sent her because I hadn't talked to her in a while, and so I was just kind of like re-sparking the conversation and all this. So I just text her, I say, "Hey, wife," and it's a joke because like, obviously, like I've gone on like a couple dates with you, like I'm obviously not marrying you, and like, you know what I mean? So it's obviously like a joke. I'm just fucking around. I'm like, "Hey, wife." She responds to me on this shit talking about like, you need like, and she might have even been joking, but it still just annoyed me. The premise of this thing was she was like, you need to buy me a ring before you have the privilege of calling me that. And I just like, I don't even, she might have been joking, but like, I think implicit in the joke is she actually thinks that. And I'm just like, the privilege, really? Like, it's just like the gall to tell me that. You know what I mean? Like, what are you bringing to my life? You know what I mean? And it's just like, so I crashed. That was another girl I crashed out on. I was just like, all right, we're done here. Like, I just like, you hear this shit and I'm just like, I'm not dealing with this. And most guys would have looked at that and been like, what's the one liner I could say to get her to like me here? And it's like, I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. I don't want you in my life if this is how you act. You know what I mean? But you got to have that attitude, guys. You got to have some self-worth and just call bullshit on this whole scam that is society, which just tells you, you as a man have no worth. She has worth. You need to do all this shit. You need a wife. You need all these things. Like, what does a wife bring to your life? Real talk, guys. Most religious men who get married, they got married because they want sex, but they feel guilty for having casual sex. Or it's a guy who couldn't get any other girls and he was afraid of losing this girl, and so he locked her down. That's why most people get married. It's not bringing anything to your life. Again, take sex out of the equation. What does this marriage bring to my life? It means I am risking 50% of my net worth. I am now exclusively committed to you over every other woman. You are probably going to gain a bunch of weight now and decline in your, I mean, she's certainly going to decline as she ages. That's just natural for female nature and all this shit. It's just like, what are you bringing to my life, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like totally ridiculous. Like the fucking nerve these chicks have. And it's just like, come on, man. Like, it's just, it's bullshit. I won't keep ranting on that. We'll keep moving on with the video, but I think you guys get the point. Like this notion that like getting a woman is so important and like you need to do everything correctly to get her. Like it's this fucking Rubik's Cube you got to solve. It's like, what is this? This is so dumb. Seriously. It's just so dumb, especially if you're a high level man. Like if you're bringing 6 figures and a fit body to the table, what are you jumping through all these hoops for? And it's like you bring all that to the table, and now it's about the text message that you send. It's like, bitch, what have you brought to the table? You know, it's like it's totally nuts, guys. It is so fucking backwards, guys. It's ridiculous. They make the woman's validation the measure of success or failure. This is what most guys are doing. It's like it's not about if they like the woman. It's not about any of that. It's just simply like winning or losing is dictated based on if the woman likes them. And if you set that frame up, you've already lost, right? And this is what most guys do. This is a sign of an inner lack, and it, along with sex obsession, causes men to put up with the women they otherwise wouldn't. You're just dealing with shit that you wouldn't deal with. You're dealing with the red flags. You're dealing with her, you know, having certain behaviors like, oh, she smokes weed and like you don't smoke weed, but you're like, whatever, because she like slept with you or something. Like you're just putting up with like low quality behavior. She drinks, you don't drink. You just put up with it. She scrolls on her phone. She hasn't had an interesting thought in her brain in 5 years. You put up with all this shit because you're like, whatever, because she seems to like me. And that makes my ego feel good. And you're constantly worried about it. It's just fucking stupid, guys. If you're a man who has his shit together, you should be on a date asking, does this woman bring anything to my life besides sex? This is another one where like a lot of women will try and be on this shit where they want to like build a life with a guy. Like this is this modern female thing where they're on this independent shit and they want to like co-build a life with a man. And I'm like, listen, I have built a great life, and like you literally cannot change any of this and make it better, because I did it exactly how I wanted to do it, right? I have the career I want. I create content, which I love to create. I talk about the subjects I love to talk about. In my free time, I work out and I box and I hang out with my friends and I smoke cigars and I go on a date if I feel like it. Like I literally have orchestrated my life so that everything is the way I want it to be. You know, and obviously I'll improve like my life. And so like financially, like, you know, different things will change. But like for the income level I'm at, everything is exactly how I want it to be. It's like you can't come in here and co-build a life with me that could improve this in any way. And so the only way you can enhance my life is by enhancing my ability to do what I'm already doing. And so that's how I go on to the date with women. I'm like, what exactly are you bringing here that makes my experience of life better? You know what I mean? Because I can take sex out of the equation, because especially if you level yourself up, sex is no longer hard to get. And so you can just look at a woman and just be like, all right, well, like I love my life. Tell me how you're going to make this even better. You know what I mean? Rather than her wanting to drag you off course. Most guys just get dragged off course because they need the sex. They need the validation. And so they change everything up. This is the guy who stops talking to his friends. He stops doing his hobbies. He stops going to the gym because of a woman. It's because he was needing validation. He had a great life going for himself. This woman showed up. His ego started needing validation. He crashed his whole life out for her. It's so ridiculous. Once you level up, sex isn't hard to find, but quality is. This is really important to understand. Like sex, like if you're an attractive guy, like you can get a girl to have sex with you. But it's hard to find a woman who actually has some quality. And I want to discuss the myth of the quality woman, because I talked about this in a previous video and I said there's no such thing as a quality woman. And when I said that, I was discussing the traditional description of a quality woman, the idea that a lot of guys have, which is that a quality woman is a woman who, you know, like goes to church on Sunday, or she doesn't wear provocative bikinis or something like that. And that is a myth. That notion that you can, on the surface, look at a woman and be like, okay, she goes to church, therefore she's a good girl, or she, you know, has the hot pic on Instagram, therefore she's probably a cheater. That myth right there, that is a myth. That notion of quality right there is a total myth. The majority, if not all, the women that have cheated on their husbands that I have known were like church girls. So you can't judge it off that. That does not actually work. So that quality woman isn't real, but there is a certain thing called quality. There is quality women, okay? All women share the same female nature, just as all men share the same male nature. And I put this in here to just, again, explain the quality thing. Like all women are hypergamous, meaning the church girl and the bikini model and the porn star, they all are hypergamous. meaning they want to get the best man they can get. They are all going to speak to you in a very, like, I guess you would say, covert way. They're not direct communicators. Men are direct communicators. Women are always saying things covertly, subliminally. They let their emotions drive them. This is all women have these natural female proclivities, meaning that all women are capable of cheating. All women are capable of being loyal. And it's like all that stuff is like female nature. The same way all men, I don't care if you're a fat slob or if you're an NFL quarterback, all men like a certain type of woman. And all men's brains are wired a certain way, even though there is grades within it, like male nature is such and female nature is such. And this is why I say there's no such thing as quality from that perspective. But within men and women, there are grades of quality, right? Just as there is the average man, there are high level men. And this is grades of quality. They share the same inner male to them, like the essence of the man and the essence of the woman are the same, but there are grades of quality that you're dealing with. And this is like to identify this in women requires you to have some self-worth and take sex out of the equation so you can judge her off of something other than her ability to validate you and sleep with you. Once you take that out, you can start to notice different quality levels and pay attention to these things. So this is what I tell you to evaluate a woman based on. Things like health, right? Health to me is a big one because, it's easy for a girl to be in shape in her 20s. Like they usually just starve themselves. They eat like a fucking Taco Bell once a day or some shit like that. And so they're like kind of skinny just because of that. But it's like, does she actually value her health? Is she actually in the gym? Does she actually follow have like nutrition that she cares about? And like even beyond nutrition, is it purely for looks or does she actually value her health, right? Because if she actually values her health, that is like an intrinsic value that she holds, which means that she will do that regardless of you. If she is simply doing it for appearances, there's a good chance that you get into a relationship with her. She has a kid with you or something like that, and she just starts gaining weight and not giving a fuck. Like that's very possible that happens. But if she intrinsically values her health, that to me is a great green flag that this is a person who's not gonna blow up like a fucking balloon on me once I get into a relationship with them. Which, get fucking mad at that, but like, why would I want to deal with that? Again, I am a high level man. I take care of myself. Why would I want to date someone who doesn't value their health? You know what I mean? So this is a big one I look at. Does she have good or bad habits? So like, is she like doom scrolling all the time on her phone? I would tell you that's a bad habit. Does she have a vape? Does she drink? Does she do all these things? Or does she have good habits? Like she reads like good books or like, I don't know, she's got like a decent like spiritual element, not in like a fucking crystals and astrology way, but like an actual spiritual life or something like that. Like, does she have those kinds of habits in place? Like those are good things to evaluate them on. Again, it doesn't mean that she won't be a woman, right? She's still going to be a woman, but you can just look at these things and be like, as long as I act like a high level man and I know how to behave like a man, it's like if she has these things, then we'll probably get along well, right? And she probably won't be disloyal to me. She probably won't cause drama in my life. And so like, as long as you know how to act like a man, then you start evaluating based on these things and you can probably have a good situation on your hands. How turned on is her brain? Meaning like, is she capable of giving you a thought that you're like, that's interesting? Like some women are capable of this. Most guys' brains aren't turned on, and it's the same with women. And so like their brain is just like a hodgepodge of pop culture and TikTok slop. Like that's what most women's brains are. And it's just like you'll talk to them and be like, you haven't had an original thought in your head ever, have you? You know what I mean? And it's just like, but there are women out there whose brains are turned on. And like I've talked to a few, I mean, like I've gone on dates with them and stuff like that, or like had like semi relationships with some of them, and they'll be talking about stuff and they'll give me a perspective on something. I'm like, oh, okay, that's a valid point. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, that's interesting, right? Like how turned on is her brain? Because if her brain is turned on, that means she can think critically, right? And that means that she can look at the world and make, judgments about it. And that's, I think that's really important, right? Because you don't want to be with somebody who's just like going with the breeze everywhere, right? You want to have somebody who actually kind of believes in something. Like they actually know why they believe in it. It's pretty uncommon with women because, women tend to not like these kinds of things. I'm not talking about having like philosophical discussions with women. I'm just talking about like women, like certain women have this way of having their like feminine wisdom where they do kind of have a way of looking at the world and their brains turned on. And so they can give you an interesting take and they have some sense of integrity and they've thought through some things in their life and how they kind of behave. And so they can give you an interesting point. Feminine qualities, right? So this would just be, like, how submissive is she? How does she, like, does she, does she do the feminine thing, or is she on some feminist shit, basically, like that kind of stuff? Is she polite and respectful? Does she thank you for buying dinner? Does she, is she, helpful? Or is she bitchy? Like those kinds of things. Does she add things to your life? Again, going back to, like I said, I've designed a life that I love. And so, like, do you add anything to that? And this is what I recommend guys do. And I talk about this in my, dating 2.0 concept that we talk about on the channel, which is like, you need to build a world for a woman to enter, because that's what she wants, right? Is she adding something to that world you've built? That's the big question. Or is she trying to, like, get you to go on her agenda? Does she want to join the life you made, or is she trying to force you to change and fit with what she wants? This is another big one, because, like, you'll notice, like, is she kind of stuck on the life that she has? And she's, like, again, big on this, like, co-building a life thing. And I'm like, I'm not a fucking, like what, why would I co-build a life with you? That doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Like, I'm going to build my life. I don't need your help building a life. Like, what is that? And you can come join it if you want. Otherwise, I don't give a fuck. Like, that's another one for me. Like, does she give me the vibes that she's on this shit where she wants to co-build a life, or is she on the vibes where she wants to come join what I got going on? Obviously, how she looks matters a lot. But if you're a high-level man, you will have access to attractive women, meaning it should no longer be the selection criteria. Like, it's like, if you have a few attractive women interested in you, her being attractive is no longer good enough. Like, you need to start going beyond this. And this, again, requires you to take sex out of the equation. The worst thing ambitious men do is spend a decade becoming elite just to waste themselves on an average woman who's decently attractive. This is like, First Man, the YouTuber, he said the most dangerous age for men is 27. And he was talking about how, like, guys will, like, work on themselves for a long time. And then they get to around 27 years old. They've had success in their career. They're in shape. A girl who's, decently attractive finally shows them interest. And because they just aren't used to that, they accept this girl. They're like, my ship's come in, they settle down with her. And it's just like, you just spent like 8 years like building yourself just to pick the first chick who showed you a little bit of interest. And it's just like, it's kind of a tragedy in a lot of ways. It's like, you did all that just to get this. Like, it's just like, it's sad to me, honestly. Like, I think about that, I'm like, what a like waste. Like, you finally, it's like you finally got your max contract in the NBA and then you just retired. That's basically what it is when guys do this. It's fucking sad, honestly. The reason they do this comes from a sex obsession or a scarcity mindset. This is why guys do this. And usually for that, the guy who's leveled himself up as a scarcity mindset, he's not used to having women interested in him. So he just takes the first girl who shows him interest and he justifies it to himself. And it's just like a sad thing. And usually because these men have this attitude, they get disrespected and even cheated on by a woman who is objectively less desirable than him. You'll see this with like some like random woman will just cheat on her like husband, and like the guy is clearly higher level than her. Like, let's say he's like a 6-figure earner, in shape. She's like, in decent shape or whatever. She's not doing anything. And she's like fucking around on him. You know what I mean? And it's just like, what is this? And it's because the guy has this attitude. And so he, despite the fact that he worked on himself, he still has this attitude that makes him low value, that makes him unattractive because he's sex obsessed or in need of validation. Put in the work on yourself and know your worth. That is kind of the message of this video, guys. You need to understand, like, I am not defined by sex. I am not defined by your validation. I need to think beyond that. I'm going to work on myself, and then I'm going to look at you objectively and decide if you bring anything to my life. Take sex out of the equation and you will gain power and the ability to get the dating life you want. All of the issues you have in your life come down to you have lost the power dynamic because you can't give up the sex. You fix that, or the validation. You fix those two things and you suddenly have unlocked all the power, because now if this is not on your terms, if it is not what you want it to be, you can walk away for any reason. And you have now unlocked the game because you are no longer controlled by these things. So thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to like the video, and I'll talk to you later.